I've decided to give this repair its own video, mainly because it's a little bit more involved and it might help someone else out with a similar problem. So this MR2 has that usual chassis issue where the swaybar mounts to the chassis is cracked. Now on one side, around the threaded holes, it's cracked but still in one piece. On the other side, it's completely sheared off. What I want to do with that side is I want to treat it like a rust repair and try and, rather than weld any old material back in, I sort of want to shape it so it looks kind of factory. The owner of this vehicle will be running those reinforcement plates to distribute the load. So let's get stuck into it. First part of this repair is making a template for the new piece. I'm templating the opposite side as it's still in one piece, and when I transfer the pattern onto the sheet metal, I'll flip the pattern around. Using a piece of paper and some magnets, I'm marking out all the lines and folds and location of any holes. Now to transfer the pattern onto some 1.2mm thick cold rolled mild steel. Here I'm using a hole punch to mark the center of the holes. The beauty about this method is the hole punch will pierce straight through the pattern onto the sheet. Here I'm cutting out the details of the pattern so I can run the Sharpie along the lines. I find this more accurate than trying to eyeball and copy the markings onto the new sheet. Once I'm happy with my pattern and I've cut the patch panel down, I take the patch to the bead roller so I can try and replicate the semicircle step up on the chassis. I use the offset dies, and after a couple of runs I have a somewhat similar pressing on the patch panel as factory. Next is tipping the edge flange. I noticed it's not a sharp crisp bend, so I've used a rounded upper die to tip the flange over. Then I finish it off in the vise. Back to the car. I need to cut out more of the offending metal before I can start offering the piece up to the car for some fine tuning. A combination of angle grinder, mini belt sander for the spot welds, a die grinder with a carbide burr bits and a body saw, I have removed most of the damage, thus giving me a better slate to work with. The curved flange I decided to weld a piece on rather than making out of one piece, as I've run out of talent. But once cleaned up, it shouldn't be too obvious. Here I am drilling out the holes for the plug welds and a final test, and it's looking good to me. Next up is the section that holds the swaybar mounts on, the threaded holes for the bolts. Now I don't know what they should look like inside the chassis rails, but I've opted to cut and shape some thick flat bar and plug weld it to the underside of this patch. This should be plenty strong enough and distribute the load satisfactorily, and the flat bar is beefy enough to tap the M8 thread I need.
Check the mic and make sure it sound right, boys. It sound right, boys.
The last test fit, everything's looking good. A nice coating of weld through primer on the backside and it's time to weld this in.
It sound right, boys. It sound right, boy.
It's all welded and looking okay, but before I call this done, I need to see if there are any pinholes in the weld. I use a small enough light, try and shove it inside the rail and look for any light peeking through. A couple of spots, so a little zip with the MIG, a little lick with the grinder and job done.
For the side that's cracked but still in one piece, for this repair I think I'm going to use the TIG rather than the MIG, mainly so I can control the penetration. The last thing I want is for a cold weld, not get much penetration, and the way that would happen is if the weld bead sits proud of the parent metal, and then it prevents me from doing a lot of grinding and all that sort of thing. So I'm going to use the TIG for that repair. Alright, just because I'm honest, this is where I'm at. That's enough of the TIG welding. I've blown a couple of holes. Well, here, it kept spattering back at me, so must have something to do with the metal that's underneath it. Anyway, I'm just going to stop it here. I've blown holes there where I drilled out and there, obviously, and I haven't welded this with the TIG because A, that hole is kind of big, and B, the gap is pretty wide here, and it's pretty hard TIGging upside down. I've never done it before, but so far so good. Everything else is welded up. Now I'm just going to grab the MIG, zip these little holes up and grind it down, and hopefully that should be good for the repair. Once again, we are running those reinforcement plates. They have not arrived yet, but they will be going on.
still open again.
I gotta lock it. So how does this car now compare to when you first bought it?
Oh, it actually doesn't rattle nowhere near as much. It's still got lots of rattles, but that exhaust with those holes and tears in it, everything would just vibrate through the whole car and just drone. So that's a huge improvement. But the front sway bar was rattling around and just clinging, clattering on everything underneath there. So that whole front end is really silent now. Everything just feels a bit tighter.
The cooling system seems to have improved now that we've got the new radiator and hoses and bleeded the system.
Yeah, it's certainly just got up to temperature way quicker and then just sat on the correct temperature, which is just an improvement. That thermostat was definitely stuck open and it was taking forever for it to warm up.
And no dash lights too.
0 dash lights. Fuel gauge is going down. That's probably normal, I suppose.
When I drove it up to pick you up, you know, it's not fast per se, but it feels fast. It's I think because you're so low to the ground and because the engine does rev quite a bit, it actually feels fun. Like I'd imagine this is what an MX-5 would be like to drive.
Yeah, I'd say so. It definitely feels like it's just a little bit of an oversized go-kart at times. It's just so low. Even just the non-power steering, the way that you just turn into corners and there's 0 body roll like a go-kart as well. Yeah, it's just a really fun car to drive, but it certainly feels like you're going really quick when you're probably not.
The interior actually looks nice and smells nice too, from shampooing.
We're 33 years old. It really has been looked after in the past. Dashboard's not split. The interior, like normally, has got heaps of those like interior noises. It sounds pretty solid for the bumps. I reckon my 10-year-old like Toyota was getting all these squeaks and rattles in the interior because of the cheap plastics. I guess these were still back in the day that the plastics were a bit more quality, I suppose. Driving with, and you're just seeing the pop-up lights, it's so unique, isn't it?
Oh, yeah.
I don't know what else to say about it.
Yes,
it's fun. It's unique.
The pop-up lights are awesome during the day.
Yeah, that's more of a night shot, isn't it? You'd only put the lights up during the day as a bit of a flex, right?
Yeah.
Just to say it looks cool. We're ruining our aerodynamics.
That's it for this little series of the MR2. I hope you enjoyed it. I've had fun working on this car. It's pretty cool to work on cars that I'm not quite used to. Well, we're going to go for a nice cruise now. Thanks for watching the videos. We'll see you next time. Cheers.
See ya. I was riding my motorbike down here one day, back in when I was like 20 or whatever, that green Ninja.
Yeah.
And David and I were just caning it down this road in the middle of the night. No one was around. And I reckon it was around this bit. Whole tree was covering like 90% of the road. And we were going so quick that we could not stop. We slowed right down as soon as we could see it because it was pitch black at night. And lucky there was like a meter gap on the left-hand side for us to scooch around this tree. Otherwise we would have had to lock it and like lay the bike down into it or something.
Fuck.
It was super. Yeah, and we're like, oh yeah, biking can be dangerous, can't it? I don't know how no other cars were like waiting for it or something because the car couldn't get through.
Yeah.
So it must have just happened. I'm saying middle of the night, more like 10 or 11 o'clock or something.